Okay, can you talk me through some of the good and bad points about your job?
Good points is you meet a lot of people. I'm a people person anyway, so I enjoy meeting people. Enjoy making customers, you know, when they come in and they look a mess, make them going out looking really embarrassed. I love that side of it. Bad side of it, because I love it so much, I sometimes can tend to do too much. For me, you know what I mean, I tend to kind of overwork a little bit because I want to please everybody. That's my bad side. But apart from that, there's not much bad side to what I do because I enjoy it.
And are there any challenges that you have to deal with in terms of maybe customers not being happy?
You can always tell when somebody's not happy. You don't have to, I don't normally have to wait till I finish the hair and they say they're not happy. You can always tell by body language really. I tend to deal with that sometimes. I'm a bit blunt and I tend to just put my stuff down and say, what is it that you're not happy with? What am I doing wrong? So, and I always have to do, especially if it's a new client, a consultation. That is so important, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to find out what they really want. I suppose the downside of it depends on some customers will tell you everything, and some are quite shy, so you don't get to find out everything. But then if they've got like a picture or preference that they want, then at least you know.
Okay. And so can you talk me through a consultation then? So a new client comes in, and what do you need to know from them?
It depends on what they're booked in for. Say for instance they're booking for a colour, then obviously they would have to come about 24 hours before to have a skin test. Even if they've had a colour before, if I haven't done the colour, then I'd like to do, just to cover yourself really, because customers can say I've had one before or I've had a colour before, but you just have to cover yourself to do that. And then you just basically sit them down, talk to them about the hair, about what they want, the majority of the time is what they don't want, then at least you know roughly what kind of thing they're looking for.
And what brings you to work every day? What's your motivation for the job?
I just love it. I just love doing hair. Sometimes I get my tired days, but I just enjoy meeting people, I enjoy doing hair, so I come to work because I enjoy it, really. I don't know whether that's a good motivation, but for me it is a good motivation.
I think it's the passion that you have to have for a job, isn't it? And you've obviously got that anyway.
Yeah,
so.
That's right. You have to have that passion, especially in hairdressing, because you meet some very awkward people. So you have to love it.
What can you expect if you were a hairdresser? What comes with the job?
Hard work, especially to start with. A lot of young people tend to go in it think they can just be a hairdresser just like that and then it's fine because it looks so glamorous. But it's like in anything, you have to start from the bottom, work your way up. So you have to start with like sweeping floors, doing like the menial work that nobody else wants to do. We've all been there, I've been there. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you ain't going to be a hairdresser. Because you've got to start doing that, because in the long run when you become qualified, then you've got to have to teach somebody else, and that's what you're going to tell them as well. They've got to start from the bottom and work their way up. But in the long run, once they become qualified, build up their clientele, get a good reputation, it's fantastic.
And what are some of the misconceptions that people have about going into hairdressing?
Misconceptions that we're going to cut the hair off when they don't want it off. Especially in afro hair, I think a lot of people who's got afro hair has had the bad experience of going to a salon, been there all day, put chemical on the hair that's too harsh, and I think a lot of people are put off by that, or somebody that's not going to listen, that's just going to want to do what they want to do on your hair. And it shouldn't be like that anyway. It isn't. Well, I'm not like that. I would never do anything to anybody that they don't want, and if I'm not comfortable with doing something, I'm not going to do it. I'd rather recommend them to somebody else.
So a young person considering leaving school now and thinking, oh, I really want to be a hairdresser, what should they do? Where should they go? What sort of qualifications should they be looking at getting?
Yeah. Like in the GCSEs, there's a lot. When I first started, it was you have to kind of take on art, because hairdressing is very arty. But if you've got a flair for that kind of thing, you're always going to have a flair for it anyway. But I always say that it's good for them, even when they're at school. A lot of young ones get sacked the jobs these days. I think it's really good for them to get their foot in the door, like get a sacked the job. Then they're already in a salon already, so the majority of the time, if they're good at being a trainee, like a sacked person, then that boss or that salon will keep them on, and then they just basically move on into a college. it's normally 3 years, so they're sitting at year 1 and 2, and then they do their NVQ 3 as well. And it's entirely up to them. A lot of salons will send them on courses to improve, whether it's colouring, cutting, because I did that, to enhance you in all different things. Afro hair is a bit more difficult because it's not like in every college, especially in this area. You probably only find a couple of colleges that will do it. So if you want to go into Afro hair, that side of it is a lot more difficult than European, because every college does European.
And is there a lot of variety in hairdressing? Like, could you specialise in different areas or work for different people in different roles? Can you just describe some of those?
In hairdressing, there's so many things that you can do. Somebody can just be a hairdresser and want to be a colourist, or they just want to be a stylist. There's others that, like myself, that want to be able to do everything, all-rounder. Some people just want to concentrate on weddings. Some people just want to concentrate on working in fashion or working on TV and just work themselves up to do that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that you can do in hairdressing if you're ambitious enough to do that, if you want to do that.
A lot of people always say that there's long hours in hairdressing. Is that true? And if so, is that just part of the job? Do you just have to be prepared to work really hard?
Yeah, there is long hours in hairdressing, especially because you have to cater for all clientele. You get some clients that can come in the day, and then you also get clients that can only come after 5 when they finish work. So it's like, say for instance today I'm working till 8, and that's because a couple of my clients can only come when they finish work.
Can you talk me through your career path and what led you to where you are today? How did you get into hairdressing?
I got into hairdressing really because of my mum, because I wanted a satin job and didn't know what I was good at. But I was always, when I was younger, I was always doing my cousin's hair, like cane her in the hair all the time. And I was only about like 11, 12. And I used to cane her the hair and stuff. And it was my mum that said, why don't you go and do hairdressing? Why don't you get a satin job and then see if you like it? So that's how I started really. And then I didn't really do Afro hair till I was about qualified for about 10 years, because the college that I went to didn't do it. So sometimes you have to kind of take it off your own back. So I basically went into a salon for about 6 months and then did courses and stuff to be able to get qualified in Afro hair. So.
And then how did you end up running your own business? Because have you worked for people before and then sort of thought, well, that's not for me, I want to now.
Yeah.
How did you make that movement?
I worked in the salon for about 17 years. I was quite happy in the salon, but then stuff happens, things happen that you think, I can't do this anymore. But some salon bosses take you for granted, all you're there is to make money and that's it. And then I decided to do mobile and I work from home, and that worked really well, but it's a lot of hard work. And then this opportunity came up to do it here, and it was the best thing I've ever done, so I just work on my own in this little station. So for me, once you become qualified, become more confident, and you've got the clientele, if you can do something like this, it works so much better.
And in terms of being a hairdresser, you also have to have a business head as well. What sort of skills would you say you need to sort of get customers through the door?
People skills. If you haven't got people skills, if you're not friendly, if you can't talk to anybody and make anybody feel at ease, it's not regardless of how good you are, it's not going to work. Because I've been to salons before and get my hair done, and the person, even though they were good, can't talk to them, or they can't talk to me, and then you end up not going again. So I think you've got to be a people person, especially in a trade where you're meeting people all the time. The business side of it, I'm not that good with the business side of it. I'm good at doing hair. When it comes to other things, my husband helps me because he's an accountant, so he helps me with stuff like that. But when it comes to the customers, I think if you're good with customers, good with people, plus a good hairdresser, then you've made it really, you'll be alright.
I came to you and said, oh Donna, could I have some work experience? What skills would you be expecting them to at least be able to come to you with to start off with, even if they haven't done hairdressing before?
Just to take the initiative, just to have some kind of initiative to, if they see hair on the floor, just sweep it up. Or if they see a customer sitting there waiting, offer a drink. It's just to have that initial forthcoming, that you don't have to keep saying to them all the time, could you do that, could you do that? If you see something, just do it. And I think that's what a lot of hairdressers look for.